I want to play desperately, and I'm going to try to drive everyone nuts till they give me a shot.
And Young looking to the end zone. Touchdown, 49ers!
People here, they think that's what Joe Montana would do.
To Steve's credit, when it came his time to play, he was ready.
Young in trouble. He's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again to the 35, to the 20, the 15, the 10. He dives. Touchdown, 49ers.
He was such a running quarterback that there were actually people who wanted to convert him to a full-time running back.
People look at Steve Young and he's this polished, well-coiffed lawyer. He has a law degree, wears a suit, but he's a great athlete.
Young, one of the courageous games I've ever seen in a pro football player's career. What a play by Steve Young. He's got some room. He's going to try to dive for it. He gets there. Oh, what a bonanza.
What you're really looking for in life is a platform to find out how good you are. If you're going to find out, you're going to find out against the best.
Goes for the end zone. Rice is out there. Touchdown, 49ers! Young thinking of a quarterback sneak. Breaks to the outside. Dives into the goal line. Touchdown, 49ers!
I spring up and fire the ball into the ground, staking a flag atop Everest. I finally reach the summit.
Steve Young, in the shadows of Joe Montana for so many years, is finally out.
Young goes deep middle. He's got Jerry Rice. Touchdown, 49ers! Quick pass to the goal line. Floyd falls in. Touchdown. Quick pass left flat. Ricky Waters makes the catch. He's in. Touchdown, 49ers. Steve Young is now #1 all time with 6 touchdown passes.
Someone take the monkey off my back, please.
Oh, it was a gorilla.
It's gone forever.
For me, getting the Super Bowl was just the minimum.
Unbelievably great throw by Steve Young.
And now he throws for the end zone, and he's got Owens, and he catches the ball. Young almost falls down, throws to the end zone. Owens! The ball had to be perfect. It was.
He scored more touchdowns rushing than Gale Sayers. He passed for more yards than Sonny Jurgensen. He passed for more touchdowns than Terry Bradshaw. And on top of that, his quarterback rating when he retired was the highest of all time. Steve Young, to me, is one of the great athletes ever to play the game.
Young has been absolutely perfect.
So we're really excited to welcome Steve and feel grateful and gracious that he came here. I have a quick story about Steve. How I kind of know him. His college roommate, Jim Herman, played football at BYU with him. Jim went on to play with the Cowboys. He coaches football at my son's high school and was my son's position coach. And we were talking. We've gotten to be friends and have that connection with Steve. And you know, on Thursday night before our games, we always have this big team dinner. And we usually get some speaker in, and Steve was going to come talk to the team one time. And Steve's a busy guy. He's private equity. He's got his foundation, all these things. And there was a deal that was closing. He couldn't make it. And he wasn't able to make it, but he filmed this video on his phone and sent it to our team, and they played it on the screen. And he's just the kind of guy that thinks of some no-name high school team in Utah and takes a minute to film a video and pump these kids up. And it was a pretty cool thing. That's the kind of guy he is. So we'd like to welcome 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time league MVP, and Super Bowl MVP, Steve Young.
Thanks, Logan. Appreciate it. I met Joe and Ryan, and the idea that you fought as kids and now you're partners is kind of cool. Did you get suspended? Yeah. You got suspended for how long?
3 days.
3 days?
And we hung out together.
Oh, yeah, so for the 3 days you like chilled together. Like we should fight more often. I love that. Thanks for having me. This is fun. I've been here in the Bay Area for, the greater Bay Area for 35 years. And I always said, if I'm getting chased by the police, I'm going to go to Modesto. Because I think people, they're like, come in here, you'll be fine. I say that as a joke. It seems like that might be scary in reality. But anyway, the idea is that I'm in fertile territory here, and I'm really grateful. The highlights reel, I want to show it to my kids because they don't care. They're like, they don't think I'm they don't think I'm much at anything. But as I threw the ball, I noticed I coached flag football, girls flag football this fall for the first time. It's in California for the first time ever. Girls can play flag football. And the feeling that they had, the first practice I went to, there was just an energy and an excitement, which is normal, right? But it was something that was different about it. It was deeper. It was, and the way I would describe it is, for years football is America's game, and I've been able to watch it. I watched my brothers play. I watched it on football. I hear everyone talk about it, and I love the game, but I can't play. And now all of a sudden, I can play. And that feeling of now I'm allowed to do something that I've been not allowed to do before is something I just had not. For me, I've always been able to do whatever I want. And I hadn't thought about things like that, where someone said, and it reminded me of the one time that I had a similar experience, very small and very anecdotal, but when I was in college, the coach said that he didn't coach lefties. I'd been recruited there, I had a scholarship, and now the offensive coordinator says, well, I don't coach lefties. And I remember thinking, that's stupid. Like, why? Why wouldn't you coach a lefty? And he just said, because it's too frustrating and too complicated. I said, okay, what am I going to say? And so I actually changed my position and went to defense because I was lefty. And luckily that coach got a head coaching job soon afterwards in San Diego State, and a new coach came in, and I was still working out with the quarterbacks in the wintertime because I loved throwing, even though I was lefty. And the new coach came out and said, why are you in defense? I heard they moved you to defense. I think you'd be good at quarterback. And I said, because I'm lefty. And he said, well, that's stupid. I go, I know. That's totally stupid. And he went into the head coach, Lavelle Edwards, and said, look, I want to give him a chance at quarterback. Who cares if he's lefty? And that changed that film. That was my life in that moment. Fundamentally, a binary moment in my life that I had no control over just happened to work out. And now I'm up here speaking to you because of all these things that happened because of that. Because I don't know, my life would be great. I'm sure it'd be sublime and wonderful and hopefully, but wouldn't be like this. And so it's just fascinating to me to have that experience with the girls and feel that. And feel what that felt like to be able to not play, now be able to play. And the excitement. And by the way, football is choreography. That's what it is. Girls are amazing. They memorize in 5 seconds. You tell them a play and you tell them why, and all of a sudden it's like, shoo-shoo. And John Pay, he's my buddy. We were at the 49ers together in 1987. He is the coach. I was kind of helping out. And we were both just amazed at the things that the girls picked up on because of their general focus on detail. And we laughed about how many years we spent trying to get boys to do it, like, it's choreography, guys. Like, stay on time, and like, oh, look at the sky, I don't know, And so we're on to something. This has been just a revelation for me, and I had the most fun I've had in athletics in a lot of years. And so they're going to expand on it. More and more schools will be playing it, and the girls are going to get really good really fast. In fact, by the end of the season, which just ended, we were doing things. We were making up plays. We used all of Bill Walsh's old plays back in the 80s and we had the signals for, and then we started making stuff up. And so we had Taylor Swift, Shake, Shake, Shake. We had Bad Bunny. We had all these cool plays, and the girls were like, you'd show them the play, and they're like, we got it. They'd line up and run it, And it's like we could make up 50 of them. So it was super fun, and I just leave that with you as what's happening today in the sport. And why football is great is because it does bring people together in unique ways to teach what I think are the most valuable lessons. And you say, all sports do that. Yeah, somewhat. But there's something about someone with the ball. A lot of people don't touch it. Everyone has a role. How do you make sure everyone feel included? How do you make everyone feel like it's important? And what I've found through the years is the greatest quarterbacks the names that you know, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees, and today it's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and these great quarterbacks. And you say, well, why? Why are they great? Well, they are great athletes. Today, you have to be a great athlete. The game that I was an oddity back when I played, running around, throwing the ball, lefty, a lot of oddities. Today, that's the job. The NFL is full of me. This is my tribe. These are my people. And it's really fun to see. But why are they? But the reason why quarterbacks were great in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and the reason why they're great today is the same. It's the ability to gather people. And it all comes down to accountability. And it's verbiage, it's language, it's behavior, individual statements that are made that are accountable versus mitigative. How do I best say this? So I used to drop back to pass, right? And the game's on the line. We're at Candlestick Park now. It's torn down. So sad to go by there. But it's like this little hole in the ground. You're like, oh, man. But it was really a great place. And so you could hear the throbbing fans. They're like, we're going to win this game. The place almost moved with emotion. You could sense it. It's full and screaming. And I'm dropping back to pass and the momentum. And you can feel it coming. And it's going to happen. We're going to go score this touchdown and win the game. And then I throw it to the other team, right? That's an interception. And so when you do that, there's just this visceral breaking of like bones. Like you can almost feel it. Like it's just, and the fans are like, it takes them about 2 seconds to start booing. Like they just have this natural reaction to boo. And I didn't take it necessarily personally, even though I felt like it was meant personally. But it was just it was emotive. It was like, boo, like that was just terrible. And my teammates all turned to me at that moment because they saw where I threw it. And they think to themselves, okay, everything is on the line and we're blocking and we're trying to make you safe and everything, and you did that? Like you threw it right to them. There's a little bit of a feeling that maybe, did you do that on purpose? Because it sure feels like it. So here I am dying. Like I'm actually living it out. I did it. I authored it. And I guarantee you the last thing that I would ever want, I would give my left arm not to have done that. And so as I'm now dealing with that moment, the lights are on, everyone's looking at me, and they're actually saying, why? The fans can't say it because I can't hear them. They're just a big, loud, 80,000 booing people. But there's a group of 11 of my comrades or 10 of my comrades on the field. It's like, why? And human reaction is to show you immediately, I did not do that on purpose. In fact, there's all these things that happened that led to this. In fact, you turned the wrong way. And you didn't block your guy who was hit right when I was throwing the ball. And look at the sun is beating right in your eye. Like, look, and oh my gosh. And the ball, feel it's wet and muddy, feel it. It's very slippery. I don't know how it's sunny and slippery at the same time, but you get the idea that are any of these not true? They're all true. Everything that happened that I just described as mitigation to why this terrible thing happened are truths. And all I am is telling you the truth. What did they respond with? We go to the sidelines. Coach would walk up, hey, there's one of the players, hey, what happened out there? I don't know, Steve. It's not Joe Montana, Not sure. And I realized over time, because that happened, not a lot, but it happened. And it was like, you have PTSD, when this kind of things happen a lot, because it's painful. Because then you have a week before another game, the media, the radio, you drive anywhere, I'm over at Safeway in line, and the person in front of me is talking to the cashier, like, it's Steve Young sucks, like, you just can't go, you can't, it's like back to did you do it on purpose? No, this is like death to me. So then the mitigation, I realized over time, was the problem. The actual telling of the truth was the problem. Because in the end, there is a truer truth that needs to be said, that I was missing, that I learned over time because of football kept giving me these opportunities to grow and learn if I looked at them, because I kept screwing up. And so I realized over time that there's a truer truth. And what is that truer truth? The ball was in my hands, and now it's in their hands. The truer truth is, I need to say to them, why did it happen? Because fundamentally, I screwed up. Fundamentally, at its core. They needed to hear that. They needed it so that they could own it as well. I kept them from owning it through mitigation. And by doing so, kept us from going forward. Because the one thing I want to do, now that you screwed up, what do you want to do? Want to fix it, or own it, fix it, and go not do it again. Go win the game. And I would always tell them, and afterwards I'd say, anytime I screwed up again, I'd say, look, I screwed it up. The ball's in my hands, it's in their hands, and it's my responsibility. But let's go to the side, let's get a drink of water, come back out, we'll go win the game. And a couple of times, hopefully not more than a couple, I think just one or two, the next time I came out on the field, I threw another interception. And so they turn to me and say, you just told me, you liar, you said you were going to go win the game. And I know I said the same thing. Well, you know what? I own it. I screwed it up. The ball's in my hands. It's now in their hands. I'm going to go fix it. So let's go to the sidelines and get a drink. We'll come back out. I guarantee it won't happen 3 times in a row. And you guys are wondering, are you wondering? I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going 3 times in a row, right? Like, you can't get in. You can't get in if you do that. So I don't know any of you that have screwed up royally in your life. And I mean royally, like sometimes it's small things too, but just screw-ups that you want. And I in my own marriage, how many times did I come home with the 4 things that she asked after the first thing? The reason why I went to get, and I forgot it. And she's like, for the 100th time, how is this possible? And I use the same principle. Because what I want to say is, you mumbled. You mumble all the time. You turn around and mumble something and I can't quite hear it. Or you're writing, I can't read it. It's like a doctor. You might as well be a surgeon. I can't. But no, don't do that, right? Because we want to move forward. We're not going to get bogged down in mitigation. We are going to own and account and truly move forward. And so for 100 times, I've turned to her and said, you know what? In the end, I screwed it up. And now I'm going to go fix it. And how many times have I gone back to the store to go fix it? So it happens all the time. It happens with my kids. And so I know this is a truth. And I give it to you because in case it's not so obvious, it wasn't obvious to me. And in fact, when I go back to my original statement around Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and some of these great quarterbacks of today that you guys get to watch, or Patrick Mahomes, do me a favor. Let's say you don't love football. Fine. But every game has a loser, a losing team and a losing quarterback. Every game. Every losing quarterback after the game has to go in front of the media, by NFL rule, has to answer questions. And just, you can stream these, you can get on, there's ways to see this press conference. Find it. It's great tutoring for you, for each of us, to watch someone who's just lost in front of 80,000 people, and now he has to face the music, and what's the questions he's answering? What happened? Why? And all you got to do, put a piece of paper, put a line down the middle, put mitigation and accountability on each side, and just listen. Just make little marks. That was not the truest truth, you know? And the guys that are not going to win next week, that mitigation side's full. And the guys that are going to probably win next week are the guys that really understand how to gather people. And so if I could teach my kids, you said, Steve, you get one thing that you can get your kids to learn. What would it be? The one thing is actually it's a lap. The vulnerability to recognize I screwed it up. The ability to say sorry and then to go fix it. Because I think with that, we can do ourselves a great amount of service. And I see it in my marriage, I see it when I'm raising kids, I see it in my business, I saw it in football. And I even see it in my daily life. There's relationships that are built today. On my way here, Joe and Ryan was a little late, a little panicked, in the left-hand turn lane, behind someone in a, I don't know, late model electrical car. And the light turned green, the arrow, and I gotta go. It's time. It's happening. In fact, I'm late. No movement. I want to say this as an example of I'm now in a relationship. In an elevator. Today, relationships happen all the time. I'm now in a relationship. What do I want to do? I want to hold them accountable, right? Like, honk the horn and move on. But I think to myself, you know what? I always talk to people around this idea that we want to have relationships that can be abundant rather than just transactional. We make a deal, you do your part, I do my part. If one of us fails a little bit, then you can get off the hook, and then we just have this transactional relationship. They always rot. Even as sacred that we make them in our sacrifices with our families, with heaven, whatever we do, transactional relationships, because they're at their core self-interested, will rot over time. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but in time. So I've been thinking about taking this accountability, this cycle of what I learned about mitigation and accountability, and then try to apply it to relationships that I get into so that I can find the abundance in it. People always say 1 + 1 = 3 is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. How do we find that? And so what in that relationship today that I had at the green light, what I decided to do was I was going to breathe. I told myself, take 3 breaths. If the light changes and he still doesn't move, then I'll figure out my next move. I don't know what it is. So I breathed. And then he went. And then as you turn, you get to another red light, like 20 feet later. And so then I pulled up the side, because I don't want to get behind him again, right? Like, I've had enough of that. But then on the side by side, I had this feeling like we had a more bountiful relationship as I looked over. He didn't know anything was going on, right? But we had a relationship, and if I had laid on my horn and maybe flipped him off or something, now we pull up together, and we're like, oh, hey, how you doing? Now all of a sudden I got a problem, right? It's like our relationship's different. And so it's just a little example of how many relationships we get into and how we got to keep our own little scorecard of how much we use mitigative language to describe true things that happened that actually don't move us forward. What we really need to focus on in the end is the ability to be vulnerable and say, you know what? I screwed it up. Happened this morning again, because I left a meeting early and I didn't tell anybody, and they wondered where I went, and I hadn't told them, and now I was embarrassed, and I told them, what do you worry? It was just this dynamic again. Well, why are you asking? Like, instead of me just saying, I screwed it up, I should have told you. Like, it happens all the time. You think I'd learned my lesson. But in football, the truth came out. And so I want you to know that in the end, the desire is to find abundant relationships. In business, like Ryan and Joe, you found the ability to fight and then build an abundant relationship. Because if it was transactional between you two and it was just a deal you made, you would have broken already, because you have to make space for all this other stuff. And so in that spirit of how Graceada is built is the spirit of why so many of you invested. Like, there's a great tactics, there's a economy that scale, there's a space. It makes sense to your transactional mind. But then there's this other part, this artful part, that makes it feel like we can find an abundance. And so I'm in private equity not because I'm transactionally motivated. I want to inspire business leaders to think about it, their lives, their businesses in this way. Because I think it's the way out. Because in the end, we end up in this zero-sum game, transactional relationship, and pretty soon we're at war. Both feel absolutely the truth on their side, and now we're killing people. And we're seeing it play out today. I didn't mean to go here, but here we are. I promised Ryan and Joe I'd be funnier. That's not so funny, but you get the point. And so for me, the biggest fundamental things that I learned, and the other fundamental thing I learned was in a room just like this, beginning of training camp in 1987 with the great Bill Walsh, who was a Hall of Fame coach, amazing guy. 1987, worried about hydration, worried about mental health, worried about your marriage counseling, worried about, your sleep patterns, worried about, a sense that, I'm the coach, but I'm your partner. No one, that's still, half of the NFL still's not there. $10 billion enterprises still aren't even close to what I just described in 1987. The greatest teams in the league today, by definition, are where he was in 1987, because that's how you get people to actually perform best. The Warriors, the Kings are coming like that. You can feel it, like they're building something that feels that way. The Chiefs are built that way. The Dolphins are now built that way. The Eagles are built that. The teams are like, well, who are you naming, Steve? I'm naming all the best teams in the league. Why? Because that's how they're built. And so Bill Walsh started that. 90% of the coaches in the NFL today can be traced right back to him. And the spirit of what I'm just about to describe to you, because the first meeting, he would stand up, the first meeting I ever was with him, he stood up and he talked about, I want you to have shared common experiences amongst each other. Because the more you know and appreciate and love each other, the better we'll be. And I remember kind of chuckling, like, did he say love? Like, that's weird, Football players, coaches didn't talk that way. But what he said, went on to say is, we're going to be at Lambeau Field in Green Bay, playing the Packers. We're going to be down by 4 points with a minute left in the game. And we'll have to go 80 yards to go win the game. And it'll be drizzling, 31 degrees, and you've never been wetter or colder in your life. And now we get in the huddle. I want you to be able to look each other in the eye and know not just the name on someone's back because it's actually there, but you actually know something about them. And so he forced us in buses and hotels and locker rooms, planes. I was at training camp and we'd go 2 a days, be dead tired, all the quarterbacks sitting together because we're the smartest, and so he'd come in and say, hey, no, you got to go. And so we'd take our tray and have to go say hello to someone else. And that takes energy, and energy they don't have right now. But he forced it. And I really appreciate that spirit of abundance that was built the 49ers greatness of 80 to 2000. For 20 years, we were in the playoffs every year. 5 Super Bowls. We lost 7 championship games. We could have 12 Super Bowls. I mean, it was incredible. And people say, why? How's that possible? How's that success? It was success built off of that speech. And so then you get leadership that believes that. The Ronnie Lotts and the Joe Montanas and the Keena Turners, and they police it in the locker room. Like, we have fights, we have disagreements, we have challenges, but we solve them. They don't get worse, and then you go in the corner, everyone starts pointing fingers, and those are the teams. I can name 20 teams right now in the NFL, and you're like, oh yeah, that's them, because they have no chance, because they're not built off of this fundamental. So I'm excited to be here to see a group of people that are kind of like-minded. This is probably a reminder more than anything, but it can let you know that there's a better way to do it, and I'm grateful for Bill. In my old business, the Everest, as it talked about in the film, was the Super Bowl, because that's where you get to know whether you're the greatest, and so the Super Bowls are the places where that gets defined. And mine was 1995, late in January, 95 in Miami against the San Diego Chargers. The night before the game, Rodney Knox, the PR director, who knocked on my door, and he said, hotel room door, and he said, hey, I got to have you sign this contract for $2,500, that if you're the MVP of the game, that you'll go on camera and say, now that you won the MVP, where? You're going to Disneyland, right? Which is kind of cool. Like, it's like the old days in the Wheaties box or something else. It's like one of those things, And so I had gone to law school, but I didn't read it. I just signed it. I didn't care, And the next day, we win, and I am the MVP of the game. And Roddy Knox runs up to me and says, Steve, you're the MVP of the game. There's the camera. You got to yell into the camera. Now that you've gone to the Super Bowl, what are you going to do? I'm going to go to Disneyland. So I did. I was like, oh, it's great. It's fun. Woo! And I went off. So about 2 a.m. that night at the parties and at the hotel, and it was a lot of fun. It was just what a night, right? And Roddy Knox walked up to me and said, hey, by the way, it's not a metaphor. You're going to Disneyland. And I go, oh, okay. Well, I'm not against that. I love Disneyland. And then I go, when is it? And he goes, oh, let's see, it's Monday morning, so tonight. I'm like, that's impossible. I'm in Miami. Well, we fly back to, you know what? I made a deal with my family. Summer?
You stalk me?
Summer.
You're saying, Dad?
I am speaking. I got to call you back.
You Venmo school $70.
Okay, I'll take care of it. I promise.
Love you. Bye.
Bye. We're now getting too much information. I got into a situation with my wife where she's like, look, I don't mind that you're busy. You're doing a lot of things. That's okay. I see you focused on what's most important at home. I see you, that's the North Star. I get that, but I can't get you. I can't get to you. And that doesn't work. And this is early in our marriage, maybe 20 years ago. And I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If anyone in the family calls me, I answer. And I have been some awkward spots. But otherwise, but it has solved for this dilemma and allowed me to be kind of here and 2 places at once. So that's that. That's too much information. Where was I? I was at Disneyland. So now it's 2 a.m. He says, you're going to go tonight. And so we're in Miami. We fly back 5 o'clock that morning, 4 more hours. We fly to San Francisco. We go downtown and have the parade down Market Street. And then right after the parade, I'm on a plane down to Anaheim. And that night, I'm on a float. It was amazing at Main Street, right in front of the castle. And there's a float, and the Disneyland band is playing, which I didn't know they had a band. That's amazing. And on the side, it said, Steve Young, Super Bowl MVP. And gold and red streamers for the 49ers. And on top of the float was me and Mickey Mouse. And that was amazing, right? Like that's Main Street, main thing. And so now the parade goes. And it's packed because it's, California and people 49ers, like it's packed. And as I go down, there's people everywhere. And they're like screaming, you're the man, you're the greatest. Joe's nothing, you're the greatest ever, And so for 4 minutes, I went down Main Street, and I say 4 minutes because it was like 1. I was like, at the end, I was like, turn around, go back, let's do that again. Because during the parade, I lost my mind. It was like this penultimate moment when you're on Everest and you put the flag down and you take a picture and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm at the top of the world. That was my moment. And I was yelling back to the people, I am the man. I am the greatest. Joe is nothing. I am the man. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there are tremendous times to be had in those penultimate moments of success. But they last about 4 minutes, generally. And at the end of that 4 minutes, we turned off backstage. The band got quiet, calmed, everything kind of, and then it was we were just standing there. And these 2 little kids boys are maybe 7 and 9, dressed the same, in the purple pants and the orange shirt, so mom doesn't lose them, And the older one the younger one sees Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse. He starts to charge the float. And says, Mickey Mouse. And before he got too far, because I was worried about he'd get run over or something, his older brother grabs him, pulls him back, says, you can't get near him. The big guy won't let you. So suddenly I'd become the man. In a matter of seconds, I'm now the bodyguard. And so I had this visceral moment where I don't think I yelled at the kid. I'm pretty sure I didn't, but I know I thought it. Maybe I did yell at him. Hey kid, of all the times in my life that I am not somebody's bodyguard, it is this one. I'm trying to extend this this time, and you're now like reminding me that, like, in the end, I'm kind of nothing. Like I'm somebody. Read the sign, you know. And in the end, I think for all of us, just remember those great moments of success. They are not lasting, and that's probably on purpose because then you got to go back to work. And that's what we did. Next year, you go back to work and try to do it again. I really want to hear from you guys. I was going to go a little longer, but I want to hear some questions because I think that sometimes those are the most fun, about things that are on your mind and things that I can tell you about that are insiders, whatever it is. I saw that the Federal Reserve did not raise rates. I'm telling you, this is it. We're going to go down from here. I don't know. Look, my wife calls me Pollyanna, so I'm aspirational. The rate hikes have really made my life miserable, and if people are looking, if Chairman Powell's looking for someone to break, I'm broken. Okay, come back. Like if you're looking for someone that's broken, yes.
What advice would you give to Brock Purdy?
So Brock Purdy is amazing. He is incredibly present in the pressure. Usually when adrenaline and emotion and noise and think about all the things that are happening on a football field. Usually when that goes up, you go with it emotionally. And what happens is you get less cognitive awareness. Anyone, you know, when you get nervous or you get full of anxiety or full of adrenaline, your visibility, your peripheral goes down. You get less, and your mind slows down. It's not as sharp as when you're like really calm and present. It's the challenge of quarterbacking. Phenomenal athletes have played quarterback through the years, phenomenal, who don't have the ability as things rise to just, in their DNA, not go with it. You can train yourself at some level, but I think there's a fundamental gift that some people have. You might be one of them. You might have seen someone like that, who just doesn't go with the normal flow of human behavior. And Brock is that guy. He in his DNA, at his root, he's built differently. He doesn't go with it. So for him, he's very present. From the very beginning he played, he's like, comes in, again, a big game at home against the Dolphins, and he's just throwing it around, and you look at him like, you're supposed to be nervous. You're supposed to have a growing curve. You know, even me, I'm like, hey, wait a second, you're supposed to go through some stuff. But he came ready. But he came ready without all of the tools that some of the other guys have today. 6'5", throw it 80 yards, stiff arm a defensive lineman, come around and throw it around. Like, he's not that guy. So for him, he needs to use all that guile and calm presence to be over efficient, because he's going to have to make 2 or 3 extra throws that those big guys don't have to do, because they make it all one, right? They can just boom and end the game. And so he's going to have to go further. And so now, through this amazing meteoric rise he had, now you've seen the last 3 weeks, he's now having a more mortal experience where, oh my gosh, I'm screwing up. And now what do I do? And so that growing is normal. It's absolutely normal. He'll never give an inch on the presence that's in his DNA. He'll always be, he makes a mistake, he's not going to make 3 of them. He'll make 1 and then, maybe 2, but not 3. And so you always have really tight guardrails for him. But unfortunately, there's a guardrail on both sides. And so we have to kind of figure out how to do that. And so he gets a lot of help, which he has, and now the defense is going to get better. So Brock Purdy could go the distance, but he has to go, he's not prototype. And so he has to go the distance in a longer, maybe a couple extra laps, which we can do. And I think he realizes that, so it's fun, yeah.
So you play with a lot of large personalities, Deion Sanders, Terrell Owens, who's the big ones you remember?
Deion Sanders was a funny guy. He came in to our team with the championship year, the Super Bowl year. He pulled me aside and he said, if any of you watched Deion this college season with Colorado, and he's just a character. He's really amazing. I mean, you just want to watch him. For good or bad, you just want to watch him. He pulled me aside and said, Steve, I am a marketing genius. He said that to me. I hardly met him. He's like, I'm a marketing genius. But I don't want you to be confused. When it comes to being a great teammate and being ready to play football and playing great football, I'm locked down. You don't have to worry about it. Don't question it. Don't ever let it go through your mind that I'm not completely ready to take care of all of those responsibilities. But I do love a parade. And I especially love it when it's my parade. And so there's going to be some parades. So just get some popcorn and watch. But don't be confused, because and what he's telling me is I'm sophisticated enough to have all this going on, but he lived every inch of it. He was a great teammate, tremendous in the locker room, phenomenal football player that was ready to play every week. And I had some popcorn, and I watched him daily do really odd things for like marketing and the parade. And I think the problem that he has today is that he could do that for him, because he was an incredibly phenomenal athlete. Probably the fastest football player I ever saw by like a couple of degrees. Like, when you talk about the fastest athletes you've ever seen who played in the NFL, and then single person's that much faster, it's weird. In fact, when I would throw towards him when he was playing on the Falcons, I got to where I wouldn't try it anymore, because he could do things that defied my eye. Just think about my job. I rate every athlete on the field because I have to, and I know exactly how the time's going to time up. I instinctively recognize it. And all of a sudden I do something that I know is going to be fine, and it's not fine. Who's that guy? And he was that guy. But Terrell Owens, another. That's a different story. But I loved them both, and the great personalities. There's so many cool people. Yeah, in the back.
Two questions. One, I felt that your season was done early. If you could go back in time, Tom Brady played 27-40, Drew Brees 12-40. Is there anything you would have done differently to prolong your career? And then the second question, what is your opinion? I'm a big football fan. I love football. My kids play football. What's your opinion on concussions and where it's going with?
Well, I'm supposedly the expert, so I'll give you what I have. The game today has changed dramatically in the last 5 years when the league decided 15 years ago, we're afraid that someone's going to die on the field. So we need to do something to try to change. And how do you change such a violent game so that it's safer? I think they've tried to do it, and they've done it by rule. Defenders can no longer launch their bodies into offensive players. That has created an incredible, and I'm talking about fractions of a second, has created an amazing amount, much more space out on the field. Tom Brady described it as the flats are always open, the middle of the field, which was always heavily patrolled. You never went in the middle of the field in the old NFL. You get yourself really hurt. It's wide open. People are just running around, and no one can hit me. Because that's the rule. We've changed the rules. So the rules have become very much more offensive-centric, and it's opened up the game. And that's why today the prototype is not Tom Brady, who can't run around, because you see every week, you got to run around because it's wide open. This is my game. I am not jealous. I'm not jealous. I'll be vulnerable enough to say, yeah, maybe I'm jealous, but it's a game that I would have loved to play today, especially because there's not the physical threat, and people are wide open all the time. It's an amazing time to play. And so if I could have prolonged my career, anyone playing today, like Tom Brady, he saw the same thing. He's like, okay, wait, no one can hit me. I was taught in a much more rigorous environment. Now I get to take advantage of all that space that is created, and they pay me $60 million. I think I'm in, right? I think I'm good with that, right? And I told people today, look, give me 60, I'm good, I'll go. I'll give you whatever I got. But the game has changed dramatically, and there's teams that still have not recognized this. They don't know that it's changed. They still run the same old stuff, doing the same old things, and the teams that have figured it out, very innovative, thoughtful. I thought the Cincinnati Bengals, if you watched the game, they did some really, they're an innovative team with an innovative quarterback, and they're going to be very good because of that. But then concussions, the league has tried to create a subjective rigor to experts being around, neuroscientists, neurosurgeons, anybody, like, come in, help us deal with this issue. But with anything, like anything, it's subjective. And so I had my series of concussions, and I've been to the neurologists, and inevitably they say, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel pretty good. Good. Great. Like, the brain is a very mysterious place, and so there are objective tests out there that you put goggles on, track a dot for 30 seconds, and it will tell you whether you're sleep deprived, whether you're impaired, whether you're concussed, whether you have a neck injury and you're dizzy because not your brain but your neck. It's all there, but it's objective. It's in or out, and the league just refuses to take it in. I've tried. I have gone to the mat. There's all these tests in front. They just won't do it, and I'm begging them to do it, because as scary as objective testing is, I believe that there are as many people in concussion protocols that are not actually concussed their brain, they have neck injury, but there's no way to decipher it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Hopefully I answered the question. Yeah?
Steve, if you could talk to us about your lowest or toughest moment as a professional and what you learned having come through.
All right. What time do we have to quit? Okay. I just don't want to, this is the question that I'm just going to go as fast as I can. 1991, I replaced Joe Montana. He's hurt. I'm now the guy that's supposed to be like Joe Montana and do all that stuff, and I'm trying to be that guy. I'm giving every inch of myself in every way that I possibly can, and I'm flailing around. We're like middle of the season. We're not doing great. We're doing fine, but not great, and everything's about me. Everything that goes, every game, everything's about, in the front page of the San Francisco Chronicle at the time, the Gulf War had broken out in the Middle East, and the headline, you can go look it up on microfiche. You can see the Gulf War, it's Steve Young's fault. Because it was funny. It was like, anything bad that's happened, it must be Steve Young's fault. It was like a thing. I was living that out, and I got more and more depressed and victimized. I felt like no one was on my side. Nobody understood. Everyone was I was overinvested and they were underinvested in what was happening, and my teammates. I just got into a very rotten place, and based on all that stuff. And I think I was clinically depressed, I really do. And I traveled home on the day off just to get out of town and try to calm my brain down, to see my brother in med school at the University of Utah. And I remember walking around trying to commiserate with him, and he said, Steve, I've got 3 kids, I'm in debt in med school. I'm not seeing the problem. I was like, oh, well, you're not helping at all. So I got back on the plane, sat next to Steve Covey, who was the 7 Habits guy back in the day. It was a great series of books, and I'd not had a chance to chat with him in my life, and I sat down and he asked me how I was doing, and I told him all the stuff I just told you. And he asked me 3 questions. 1, tell me about your owner. And I said, well, Eddie DeBartolo, he's the first owner in the history of the game that now sees players as family, that we're included in, and he sees us eye to eye. It's changed us, and he ended up changing him. He's in the Hall of Fame because he was the first owner to ever do that. Now owners all over the NFL are now seeing that building partnerships with their players is the way to go. He says, I know, I heard that. I'd love to meet with him. And it seems like a really interesting guy. Tell me about your coach, Bill Walsh. Oh my gosh, as I told you, forward thinking, 3 generations ahead, both on and off the field. He goes, yeah, you know what, I've heard that about him too. I'd love to meet him as well. And then my last question is, Joe Montana, is he on the team? And I go, yeah, he's hurt, but that's half the problem. He goes, but if you needed to ask him a question of mentorship, could you ask him? And I said, yeah, I could. He goes, Steve, I travel the world looking for corporations or businesses, platforms, organizations, charities, families, whatever it is, a platform where the human beings on the platform have the ability, are given the ability to iterate and find out how good they can get. And then I put books about it, because I want those principles out there for people to allow human excellence. And so I travel the world looking for these. And what you've just described to me, and I don't want to be painful to you, but I don't know that I've ever seen a more perfect platform in my life for someone on it to go see how good they can get. I went, oh, okay. And then he said, I have one more question. I've watched this for years. As people, I challenge them on the quest to see how good they can get. Do you really want to know? Because it's hard. It's risky. Do you really want to know? If you could be on this platform and the result of it is to see how good you could be, and you find out you're not as good, but you're allowed to iterate and then fix it and go try to get better, do you want to see how good you can get? And I immediately was like visceral, like, yes, absolutely. I'm not afraid. I want to do it. And he said, well, then you better run down there tomorrow because this is the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And I remember watching my whole life go upside down. And from that day on, that conversation changed my life because it got me out, it snapped me out of the hole that I dug myself. I blamed everyone else for digging it, but I had dug it myself. And I was at the bottom of the pit, and I was about to lose my job. And on Wednesday morning, which was the next morning, is when you lose your job in the NFL. They say, well, you're benched and someone else is playing. I ran down the next morning, energized, praying that I didn't get fired. I didn't get fired. I ended up finishing the season, got hurt a little bit, but from that day on, I started a whole new process of thinking that was authentic and real. It wasn't like someone gave me a speech and self-help or anything. I was like, no, it was fundamental to how I saw myself and I saw the world and I saw my opportunity. And I only tell you this because the next year, 1992, I was the MVP of the Super Bowl, MVP of the league. And I can trace it right back to that conversation. That's where that started. And the next year I was second in the MVP, and the third year I won it again. And I'm not saying that's what happens all the time, but I remember the quest. I remember they showed on the film. I ran up to Troy Aikman, the Dallas Cowboys, in a big, they were the other team that was the best in the league. And I ran up to him as we were warming up. And I'm like, Troy, it's so great to see you. I can't wait to play. I'm on this quest to see how good I can get. I can only find out against the best of everyone, and you're the best, and so this is going to be amazing. And I remember Troy looking at me like, what the hell? Like, okay, it's weird, but that's how I looked at the world. And I've tried to hold on to that now 25 years later, 30 years later, to kind of like, don't be afraid. You're not as good as you want to be, but let's go find out. And so that's that. So I used a couple minutes, but I don't want to waste any. But that's the one for me. That's where it happened. And that's why I watch I'm telling you again, going back to the victimization, I watch my language. Because I got in an issue with my teenage girl the other day. And it was about her driving, which is not good. In fact, she backed into one of our cars in the driveway that was in her way. Like, she forgot to look. Like, who backs into the car right behind you? But we got into a thing, and I felt so empowered and righteous in the conversation, and I was just going to make my point. And gratefully, she was mature enough to give me the feedback, the recognition that, you know what, Dad, you're not realizing what you did. And then as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh. It doesn't necessarily change that you're a lousy driver right now and you'll get better, but it did change my righteousness in the conversation. And it was all about mitigation, victimization, and all the same stuff. So I beg you, for your own lives, watch your language in your marriages. Watch. Because when you start talking mitigation, you know you're not headed in the right direction, for sure. And so how do we get on that? How did I get to my daughter's driving? This is weird. This gets stranger and stranger. Yeah.
So you've had a career in private equity since. If you could maybe speak to what any parallels you find between those two very different careers and how how the transition occurred.
They're similar in that the locker rooms, the high functioning people, the degree of difficulty, and the excellence necessary are kind of similar. And then also these same principles. I only share with you what I told our firm, it's named HGGC. I know it's a terrible name, but that's just how it ended up. I tell them there's two things we want to be. We want to be excellent, and we want to be kind. And I tell them those aren't necessarily in cohesion, right? Well, you want to hold kindness and excellence, driving to results and everything else, and kindness, there's going to be tension, and what I call creative tension. And so in I learned from my old job that this job can really be benefited by this recognition of this creative tension that's necessary between two values. And then we're going to compensate on excellence, not on attribution. We're going to compensate on kindness. And then that's going to be who we are. And so it's been fun for me to take my lessons that I kind of semi-shared with you and try to make them a part of our business. And watch as all these young quarterbacks want to point out that the guy turned the wrong way, right? And that the sun was in my eye. Like, I watch, I'm like, stop! Don't do this! Watch your language. So it's fun to go through that and try to pay it forward. So I feel like I'm paying it forward kind of in that way.
One more, last one. Or whatever, just last question.
So I want to start my question by clarifying that I was a Tom Brady hater until he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs. But what was? I mean, he went to 14 AFC championships and won 7 Super Bowls. How does a team do that? Like, what were
How have the Patriots done since he left? Are they doing good? I can't remember.
They're doing terrible. But it couldn't just be one guy.
It isn't just one guy. It never is. You need a lot of help as quarterback. There's no question, and I agree with that. That was a rude comment because it wasn't reflecting the truth. But I will tell you, think about Tom Brady. What about him can be paid 10 times everyone else, be 40 years old or 43 or 38 or whatever, and be twice the age of a lot of the players, be married to Giselle, a world-renowned model, have 2 children with Giselle, have a family, and still gather those underpaid linemen to go fight for him. Think about the degree of difficulty of that, week in and week out. And he spent his life's work was to make sure that he gathered them every week. Every word that he spoke, every action he made was to make sure that he did everything he possibly could to stay accountable to those 5 or 6 guys. And that was his North Star. And I admire it because he never broke. People thought he was boring, he's a robot. You hated him for I don't know what reason, because you love people who aren't excellent. I'm not sure. 49ers. Okay, yeah, that's a good reason. That's a good reason. Now I understand. Okay, I got it. But it's an amazing thing that you have to step back and just appreciate the diligence of every waking moment you're going to spend to let your wife know that you really care, that that you're going to be excellent on the field and that you're going to gather these 6 or 7 people. And look, some of it's frayed for him. You've seen that in his divorce, but I just admire that. I really admire the ability to gather people that are disparate, that are not like you, that are not paid like you, that don't understand, and make them feel like you're with them, like emotionally, authentically, I'm with you. Despite all the things that make you feel like I'm not, I am fundamentally with you. That's a talent. And Brock does that. No woman asked me a question. Is that because I didn't see you? I feel like we just need to, just one more from anybody. Is there anything that's been on your mind? How much you hate football? I'm able to take that. No, you're not a woman. Yes. So the reason why it's in California this year officially, and next year they'll start a playoffs, and next year there'll be colleges with scholarships to flag football soon. Like it'll be massive. Based on what happened this year, clearly, 35 of our girls went out. It decimated other sports because they want to play. The NFL sponsored that 15 years ago. They've been at that for a long time. The reason why it's in the Olympics in 2028 in LA is because of the NFL's, because they see it as, in the end, it's a business, right? They want more people playing football. But the service is to women having a chance to play. And, I want to leave this last one with you. So, first game that we played in the girls, there was 4 women. I'm going to say they were 80 to 85, 90 years old. I'm just guessing. And there are 4 of them. And my wife was there and got chatting with them and go, what brings you here to the game? Because there's only 15 people there. They go, well, who do you know at Menlo School? That was our school. Well, we don't know anybody, but we heard that girls were playing football. And we could have, the 4 of us have talked about it our whole lives, dreamed of this moment, and we just wanted to see it. We just wanted to see it. Wanted to be here for it. And that really affected me. That gives a tear to my eye. This is not necessarily about football, it's just about inclusivity, about giving people a chance. And I think there's something we need to, I don't want to be political at all, because I don't mean to be. I just mean to be this rootedness of making space for each other. And so that feeling, and I've had 20 women stop me on the streets in the last couple of months saying how much they wish that it was when they were in high school, because they would have, I always dreamed that I have a chance to play. Happy that they're playing today, but really regret that I didn't have that chance. So, all right, much love to all of you. Great to be with you. Appreciate you.